Welcome, my name is Owen Welling. I am with Gun Rights Across America with the Washington State chapter. I want to address some important issues that we have coming up today. As you all know, I-594 is coming up for a vote in November, and this is part of our comprehensive strategy to combat what we know is a lot of out-of-state money flowing into Washington State. We've watched as companies or groups such as Bloomberg have imported a lot of money into states such as Colorado and New York in order to get their will executed and influence the outcomes there. And we know that one surefire thing to combat them in this state is going to be working face-to-face, one-on-one with the voters in that grassroots effort. What we want to introduce here is called the Sharing is Caring campaign, and this is kind of a three-step process for us. Number one, we know that we have over 3,000 viewers, members, wherever. Actually, it's over 4,000 now. That passed 3,000 when I first came on the page back in it was late December 2012, January of 2013. We're above 4,000 viewers now, and what we want to do is capitalize on those people that view the page and the new people that come in. But what we've seen is some challenges with the way that Facebook handles data, especially for old and new people. New interests are heavily weighted. So the Sharing is Caring program is specifically oriented to reach out and reach the full amount of audience that have opted in to see our content on the page. And then we want to introduce some training programs. As we said, we know that Bloomberg is spending a lot of money. It's actually 4 times what the in-state people have spent. And as Gun Rights Across America is a completely volunteer organization, we operate solely on a grassroots methodology. We don't raise money for campaigns. We don't spend a whole heck of a lot of money. They do some memberships and some bonuses that way, but as far as campaigns go, you may see some money coming in from NRA. Second Amendment Foundation is almost strictly a legal battle, but they are quite a resource on a lot of fronts, but their big heavy lifting is towards legal battles. So that's why we want to get involved now in as far as training people to go out and talk face to face with their neighbors, their friends, their coworkers, and to help influence that knowledge base that's going to be available as far as the vote goes, because that is our greatest asset at this point, is our knowledge of the law, what it is written to do. Even though it's not written clearly, we can see clearly what's going to be going on. So that's why we're focusing on the grassroots effort, because we know it will have the most impact. So as this 3-step process goes, number one, we want to increase our reach so that our full constituency is seeing the things that's going on, and that's both in Gun Rights Across America as well as other members of the Gun Rights Coalition, such as Second Enforcers, Liberty Riders, Lewis County Open Carry. Very, very many groups are involved in this movement to combat I-594 in Washington State at this time. And I just want to send a shout out there to other members of the Gun Rights Across America in other states. This is a handbook. This is how you can increase your Facebook reach in these times of dire need, when you need to address all your members, because Facebook is not showing them all now. And it can really only be done to reach them all with the help of everyone there, because as you'll see later, that's how Facebook is programmed. And you'll notice that even on our page, we don't pay for any leads. Nobody in GRAA does. And I was very suspicious of that when Facebook first came out, and as it turns out, many of them are click farmed. So we don't even go that way. So our first goal is to increase our reach to reach everyone that has opted in on the page, and then to provide some training, some situational examples of how to work about that face-to-face in a non-confrontational, very friendly, open manner. Something that becomes second nature, it becomes fun, and it becomes enjoyable. Because if it's not, we know it's not going to happen. That is the next big step, is go through the training to help people learn how to open up. And then we want to put things, put more specific media. There's a lot of things that we share on the Gun Rights Across America Washington page. Some things get better responses than others. But what I want to know is, as far as the users and the viewers and the constituents, what are the things they would like to see to be able to share? Everybody's personality is a little different. I'm kind of a facts and figures guy, and I like that hard evidence. I like those hard moral arguments. It's very, very comforting to me, and that's the way I work. But we all know that the people that are going to vote for I-594 and that are going to vote for any gun control issue, really, they could care less about facts, reason, and logic. Therefore, we need to understand what we can do to reach them on an emotional basis, because we cannot logic them out or reason them out or provide evidence that will take them out of that position that emotion got them into. And we need to come to them on that level of their emotion and be able to connect and be able to use that emotion to pull them out of that position that is really going to be a bear trap, as it were, as far as their future security, as far as the people's security, then the nation and the society's security. So that's a huge threat that we see. When we saw the testimonies in Olympia, we had a many number of people saying, well, we've got to do something. And then the question was asked by the people on the podium, what is this going to do? Well, nothing really, but we want to do something. And this is a slippery slope. We all know that. They won't ever believe it. But that's the end-all be-all, is we don't want to start down the slippery slope at all. So we want to shut this down now and ensure that our freedoms are maintained. So back in 2013, when I first came on Gun Rights Across America, I saw a huge reach come out from a handful of posts. I remember the January rally in 2013, we had a reach of almost 130,000 people just on the Washington page, and this was from a membership of just under 3,000. And it just astounded me. And then I watched as Facebook's algorithms changed, how the programming changed, and that was shrunk down to about 6,000, 7,000, 10,000 on a good week. So the power is there to reach all those people, but what we need to understand is how to motivate and mobilize everyone in the help for that, because of the way Facebook factors in all the situations, all the content creator and the content viewers, how they like it and how they interact with it. Just liking the page and clicking on following is no longer enough to ensure that you're going to see the content. If you're not a regular as far as seeking it out, it won't get presented to you, and even then it may not ever get served up to you if enough people don't see it. That's just part of Facebook's algorithm. So here is a slide that kind of is, you see it in the fine print. This is a simplified equation. Facebook also looks at roughly 100,000 other highly personalized factors when determining what is shown. But these are the big ones. What is their interest of the user in seeing this content creator? If you come on Gun Rights Across America and look at our posts every day, it's going to be high on the list. Then it looks at, as far as me as a content creator versus the other 2 to 3 state admins or the national admins that post things, and I would say above 90% of the posts on Gun Rights Across America in Washington State you're seeing from me. We have another admin. He does a few posts, but he does a lot more organizing for like our rally events. And honestly, the digital content creation is my specialty. Organizing the rally is something that I could do, but he does a much better job at it. I don't have the time for it, and he has done it several times. He's very good at it, and I'm extremely grateful that he's still on as an admin and takes care of those tasks. So whether he's put something up or I put something up, it still waits on whether you like the content from that creator. And then it goes by types, as far as, is it a link, is it an image, is it a video, and then how recent has it been posted? Will it get served to you? Is there a gap coming up in your feed where it can sneak that in? Those are the things that Facebook uses to calculate how you are going to see it. So in order to reach the maximum number of people by the page, if we've got that issue that we want to share and beat the drum on, like vote no on I-594, then we need everyone that sees it to do 3 things. We need to like the post, you need to make a brief comment, even if it's just a 1-word thing, and then you need to share it. And we're going to follow through with an example here. But those 3 things will push it out to the maximum extent. Unless absolutely everybody is seeing it, which is physically impossible just because of time constraints and everything else, it won't get served to everybody. But that will help us increase our reach, so that here in 2 weeks or a month, when we publish the how-to video as far as the activism and the grassroots, things to focus on, and the methodology, then we'll have better reach for how that penetration goes and people using that to influence their family, friends, and neighbors. And that's really the big thing. I was really surprised today. This was one of the only times I've ever been to the park. I took my daughter to the water park, and I probably handed out a half-dozen pamphlets. I don't just walk and hand it to everybody, but I usually have a couple good conversations. This time I did have a friendly conversation with the guy that was there, but it didn't start out with guns. It started out that he was from back home where I was, or his family that he had married into was back home from there. And, he was a leather worker, so we started talking about had he done some holsters and done some custom work. And then I asked him, was he voting soon? in this primary. He said he didn't make the primary, but he was definitely going to vote in November. So I gave him a No on I-594 pamphlet and asked him to take a look at it. And obviously, there's someone that's traveled overseas. They see the value of what we have in this country as far as the personal security of owning a firearm and being responsible for your safety versus delegating that responsibility to the police who don't accept it. It's not reciprocated. I don't know how many times the Supreme Court has ruled that the police are not responsible for our safety. So those are the big things: like, comment, and share, and then Facebook's algorithm will start to do its work and more people will get that post unlocked in your feed. I'm going to show some old posts here. This one is from March 4th, 2013. This one had a reach of just over 9,000 people, but we had, oddly enough, the bulk of the likes it was split between on the page and off the page. You know, you see people that like it once on the page and then it shows up in their feed, and then the people that may like it on their feed, and so Facebook counts that as well. And when people share it, it just keeps bumping that equation, and to see how many people from the page see it. So the ones that don't see things very often, they wait until it reaches a high level. Like this one had a huge reach, and it was one of those things where the current administration was hemming and hawing about drone use on citizens. And you know, it was something that the issue just stung, and it stunk, you know, and it really hit to the heart of what a lot of people were concerned about. If you see on this one, we had less than 500 likes on the actual post on the page, and it's almost 5 times that many of people liking it off the page. So that was an issue that really hit home. You know, that one would have been seen by nearly everyone on the page at that time, and then a lot of their friends saw it as well. And that's kind of what we want to do at this point, to be able to mobilize the people that have opted in on the page but haven't necessarily been seeing the content because it hasn't reached that level of critical mass for the Facebook servers to kick it over and serve it up. Once that happens, we know that we will still have more people come into the page and be able to utilize that content and that training as well at the same time. So we have one other post here. This one was further down the scale, but look at the contrast. This one had 2,000 likes, 479 on the page. This one had 100 on the page, and then 680 on shares, over 6 times on shares. And this one was 5 times on shares. So, you know, the ratios come and go, but what we ultimately want to do is be able to gather in more people of like mind that we can prepare to share this message in a grassroots fashion. We had one more post. This one was 20,000. Look at how many likes were on the post and how many shares there were. 283 shares, 125 likes, you know, and 4 comments. And it would have been served up to more people with more comments. I'm going to show one. I think it's the next slide. This is an experiment we did here just a little over a week or so ago. And I said, hey, let's do this. Like, share, comment. And then we see how far out it'll reach. And it turns out this one had 570 shares, which was more than any other one, which really surprised me. And I'm proud of you guys for sharing that out and putting it on your wall and getting the word out. It only had about a little over 200 likes. There was a couple names in there I had to redact, and it says and, you know, just like the first 3 names and 199 others. But the total stats on this one, 1,600 likes. So it had 202 likes on the page, 1,400 on shares. So that's over 7 times, well, almost 7 times as many on the shares for people that saw it. And that's how it balloons out, because when you get the 202 on the page, their network sees it after they like it, right? That will come up in their feed. When you get the 577 shares, even more people will see it, right? So the likes and the shares combined get served up, and it spans out on each degree of separation. It starts showing to more and more people. Right, so likes, comments, and shares total was 2,400 people, and your reach was not quite 10 times that. So that's really, you know, this was just a one-off thing with people that happened to see it, chimed in. 202 likes, 570 shares, about 2,000 between likes, comments, and shares, 2,400. And that got us a reach of 22,000 people. We only have just a hair over, I think it's 4,300, maybe 4,200, like people that are inscribed or opted in on the page. So that gets us out of the network quite a ways. Imagine if we can pull in 22,000 people when we start sharing this message about the grassroots activism and start sharing targeted specific posts against the I-94 background check issue. For those of you that are out of state, I-594 says we can't even have a transfer. I go to the range But if I want you to shoot my gun, we've got to go do a NICS check. And if I want it back, I've got to do another NICS check. So we can't just trade it back and forth at the range. It's completely ridiculous. It's going to bankrupt the state treasury, and it's going to criminalize way more people than it's ever going to catch, because we all know how criminals treat laws. We're still trying to oust the criminals that are abusing our laws in the government. So just another view in relative position of what some of our other posts did that day. I'm not a social media guru or a social media engineer by any stretch. I just pulled these down as I was going through, because that was kind of a plan in putting this post up, and I wanted to compare it. But very typically in a week, I think we ran some stats here, that was the day that post went, and that was just for that day that it had an organic reach of 10,000. So over half of the reach of that post came out in one day, and then you kind of get the long tail after that by diminishing. And I guess you can't really see it, but it stays. You follow the cursor, it stays that steep right there until I post something else, and you're still getting that effect coming in. So the effect goes on for a couple days as the post is there. It keeps getting served up to other people as more and more then it gets popped up more and more. And you can see our typical reach is somewhere between 4,500 and 2,000. 4,000 is about an average reach for a total week, right? If you go back to some of those other ones, oops, I didn't have that, but you could see there were weeks and there where the spike was extremely high, and we hit 130,000 people. So when we get things that are very popular and people share them, the word gets out, and that's ultimately where we want to be right now, is have everybody taking those 3 steps. Reach the maximum amount of people. Like each post, make a brief comment. Great, super, grand, that's cool, oh my gosh, whatever, couple words, right? And then share each post. This will get the Facebook servers to show them to the whole group. As more and more people comment, it'll keep getting served up to more and more people that don't normally see it in the Gun Rights Across America Washington State page. Now, what will also happen is you like something, people in your network will see that it'll like, and they'll come in. And I don't have the numbers for how that funnel works, but I know that it does bring people in. We get a handful every week. This will bring more, because obviously it'll reach further into the networks. And since this is heating up, and we have other campaigns with the Gun Rights Coalition that's going to be visiting several cities. I don't know if they're open debates or if they're just soapbox rallies and sign waving, whatever, for public awareness. But this is all going to be coinciding very fast through the remainder of August, September, and October, coming to the vote in November. So as far as next steps from here, when we get everybody in the next 2 weeks, that we can come to each post that's like, share, and comment. And I'm going to, I want to take a deeper look, and I'd like to hear comments right now. You can comment them as messages to the page. You can leave them as comments to the on the post, because believe it or not, about 99% of those get read, and I read most of them myself. Sometimes I respond, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I like the good ones, but I do see those comments. So if you guys got something specific, put it up there as a comment. But where I want to go from here is, what is your biggest challenge? What do we need to address on the one-on-one training? Is it, how do I break the ice? Is it, how do I bring up the topic of guns without sounding preachy? How do I, and that seems to be a big challenge for me, is like, okay, I see this guy drives a Prius, he's got an Obama sticker, do I even start? And it's like, hey, nice car, I want to go to the range. Maybe that's not the cleanest icebreakers, but maybe we should have a couple drawings and give away some goodies for your best stories on how you did share the gospel of the gun. There's a lot of people out there that are on the fence. They're hopeful curious. They understand a little bit of self-defense, but they're really scared of weapons. Sometimes the best icebreaker is, you ever shot a gun? If I take you to the range, would you like to try it? So there's many stories, many opportunities, and like I said, just about every time that I've been to the park here in the last 6 months, I've had a conversation with somebody in the park, and even though I haven't convinced them to go out and buy a gun, I've convinced every one of them that it's not in their best interest to be infringing upon other people's rights. So that's one of the things that we want to address, is what are your challenges in going one-on-one? What's stopping you from, when you're walking down the street with your family, tossing out a flyer or just chatting with people as you're going down the street? It's not an easy thing to do, and it's not everybody's cup of tea. But if we want to win this initiative, that's going to be the kind of thing that we're going to need to do. That we're going to need to talk to everybody that we see that's in arm's reach, and everybody that we know that's in our immediate circle that we can continue to influence and continue to move them. along with whatever it is they need to move, emotional arguments, factual arguments, or just plain philosophy and reason. We need to be pushing on that because they've got us outspent. And there's no way that we will win this in a traditional spend money buy ad campaign. This is the social media and one-on-one influence, one-on-one sharing and caring and talking to people is how we're going to win this campaign against I-594 and prevail in preserving the fullness of our rights. So the next step after that we figure out what is the big challenge. And there isn't one. Everybody has a different one, and that's why I'm envisioning a series of maybe 3 or 4 videos to start with. They're not complicated when you address one of those things at a time. It might wind up being a 5-minute video. And that kind of gives you some role playing and some play acting of how to address that situation. And you try it out with family, then you try it out with some strangers, and then you keep moving on from there. But the more we can reach out like that, the more influence we have. The next question I have is, what kind of content do you want to see in order to share? So both of those can be answered to messages right on the page, or you can answer them to the comments on this video. We will look at them, and we'll keep that in mind. Because ultimately the goal is we want to preserve our rights. They are not gifts from government. And whether you believe in a creator like me, or you believe that they are inherently human rights with your being as you were born in the womb, those rights shall not be infringed. It's not the government's prerogative to make us their property and their slaves by infringing upon our properties and our prerogatives. That's essentially what they're telling us when they say you should do this or that. And it doesn't matter if we're talking about guns, if we're talking about who we hire, or if we're talking about what we do. I mean, this is the silliness of what's going on in Washington. They have decriminalized recreational marijuana because we know that prohibition doesn't work. And somebody entering into something like that consensually with another person or doing that to their own bodies, it's none of my business. So how is it that you think that essentially pointing the guns of government and enforcement at a bunch of law-abiding citizens is going to stop criminals? Laws are made to stop criminals. They shouldn't be used to criminalize good people that just want to defend themselves, that aren't infringing upon anybody, that aren't being a threat to anybody. You want to stop the criminal crazies? There's really only one thing that stops them, and that's a good guy with a gun. And when they know that there's a good guy with a gun everywhere, they won't even try it. That's the great thing about Washington is right now we have a concealed carry permit ratio of about 1 in 12. California is over 550. 1 in 555 concealed carry in California. You couldn't get help from an armed citizen if you wanted it. You shouted at the top of your lungs for an hour. But here in Washington, your odds are very good. And that is what keeps this state safe, is the criminals' fear. They are looking for opportunities. There's a reason they walked into Jack in the Box. There's a reason they've walked into Target, because it was publicized that the gun people, they don't want them there. So they know they're going to stay away. They're rabid opportunists. But if you show them that united front, it's any predator. They aren't even a serious predator because they don't want to see a threat. They're scavengers. That's all they want to do. And when we show them that united front, then they will turn tail and run. And that's the serious harm that happens in laws like I-594. It's going to make it impossible to train people. It's going to make it impossible for recreation. It's going to make it impossible for anyone new to get into it. And I think it's one of the most draconian laws I've ever seen. Inside the United States, it puts it on par of some of the Eastern Bloc states as far as gun ownership. And I can't imagine that they've even conceived how much of a hole this is going to put in the state budget to enforce this when they don't even have any idea. I mean, this is criminalizing an activity that's as common as borrowing a gas can when you've run out, which it doesn't happen to everybody. Sometimes it happens to somebody once a year, but it happens quite a lot when you start looking at the population in general, especially for those that are on the law-abiding side of firearms. So that's where I want to go from here. And I just want to take this time to thank you all for watching this. Sharing is caring. Sharing is caring. Please spread the word. Help reach more people. And when this next training comes out, let's get it in front of them, and let's make some waves. Let's rock the boat, because King County is huge. There's a lot of people that are just going to listen to the propaganda, but we need to hit them hard and hit them with the emotional side of the argument and show their face in the mirror, just like they did to the riot troops in Ukraine. I mean, once they start to see really what it is that they're coming from, they understand where the monster is. It's not those crazies out there. Those crazies, you think they're crazy, but they know better to go than where there are people with guns. But the crazy thing is this group of people thinks it can bully some other people into giving up their rights, which will not happen. My name is Owen Welling. I'm speaking today for gun rights across America, Washington State, and the Gun Rights Coalition. I thank you for your time. Have a good day.